Yeah, so anyways, they finally, they did them right. They clipped them in right, forward, both of them. And then, that guy who was yelling before, they were like joking around with him now. So I guess that's kind of how Spartans are. Or maybe Greeks in general. Probably Greeks in general. And maybe even people in the Baltics in general, because the Serbians are like that big time. Is that they're just really like, they yell a lot. And they're like, and they look like they're angry, but they're not. But that was fun. And then they didn't want to charge me, so that was cool. Working on my ship for an hour and giving me 3 beers, and they didn't even charge me. So then I went back to that campsite and saw like the World Cup, Greece versus Argentina. And I left like after the first half or whatever and into a little bit of the second half, and it was still 0-0, but I guess Argentina won. But they looked like they were playing pretty even though. Greek had a good team. But anyways, then the next morning I managed to get up early because meeting that girl, plus I was in good shape still. A lot better shape than I am now. And I had a day off, but yeah, anyway, so I got up really early. I think I left at about 7:30 or something, which was like ridiculously early for me. And that was cool though, because Sparta is pretty high. It's like 1,800 feet. So it was like nice and cool and early, and there were no cars. Because I was on this road where there were no cars literally because the road was closed. Because there was like a landfall or something, and it was a really good road too, like newly paved, and then there was a whole huge sinkhole that I just had to ride around the edge for a little bit. So that was cool. I had my own road for like an hour. And then I rode into Mycenae. That's great getting up early because you can like ride so far and get so much done in one day. Because I rode all the way into Mycenae. I rode past Argos into Mycenae. I saw the treasure of Atreus. I saw Mycenae, which was amazing, and the museum, totally taking my time. And then I rode into Corinth, and I saw Corinth, totally taking my time, the whole ruins there. And I stayed at a campsite there, but it was like a campsite, maybe there was nobody staying there. It was just in, these people's backyard, but it was totally set up. They had I had my own light, my own electrical outlet, my own shower outside right there. And he didn't even charge me because I guess he hadn't seen a bike tourist before or whatever. So, and but my camera battery was dead, so I had to just go ahead and see Corinth the next day to film it the next day. And Corinth was really pretty. Maybe I'll talk about that later when I do what I think about Greece, but Corinth was really pretty. And there was this big mountain on the background with this huge cliff, castle fortress on the top. And then the next day I rode into Athens. And that was on a Friday, and I didn't realize at that time that in Greece everything's closed on Saturdays and Sundays. So I didn't bother to try and get my bike rack fixed that day. So I just went into a campsite, and I should have gone into a campsite because there was a hostel that was 16 euro. Because I didn't even research how much the hostels were. I just was stupid and assumed that the campsite was cheaper, and the campsite was 13 euro, but then the food at the campsite was more expensive. So it would have been cheaper to just stay at a hostel, and then it would a million times more fun. So anyways, I stayed at a campsite, but it didn't really matter because I was busy, doing the films, the editing for my films and stuff. Transferring, and because they had internet there and everything and uploading. And then the next day I went into Athens, and but as I was rolling into Athens, like right when I was in the outskirts, this rack, the aluminum rack that I bought in Patras, totally collapsed. And so I had to put the backpack on my back for like the last 5 kilometers going into, or maybe even 10 kilometers going into Athens. And which isn't really fun, especially because I was riding in on a super highway with no shoulder up a hill, hot. But so I went into a bike shop, and luckily for me, they had a metal rack. Boom! It was a crappy, poorly built metal rack, but it's a metal rack nonetheless, which means that I can fix it. You can't fix aluminum racks because you can't solder aluminum, and there's welders like everywhere. You know, the smallest town in the most backwards country has a welder. So that was the score. I got a rack, and then I decided to go into the hostel, but I went into the Athens backpacker hostel, which was €26 a night. But that was fun because they have this like rooftop area where there's a bar where we had partied with the other travelers, which actually got on my YouTube video. But before that, I did the tour of the Acropolis, which is really pretty. I guess I'll include that on my Greece video. Yeah, Acropolis is amazing, really. Just like would have been amazing back in the day, big time. But yeah, so then we went out, and yeah, a bunch of people were buying me beers. This New Zealander guy bought me like 3 beers. Then this girl bought a round of like rakia, and that guy bought me a rakia, and then this other guy bought me a beer. It was pretty cool. And then they did a pub crawl, but I kind of dropped out of that pretty early because I got really drunk, and I hadn't been socializing all that much, and I was kind of like not really into it, so I went to bed. And then the next morning I was like, all right, let's fix the bike. Because I guess that was a Friday. Yeah, that was the Friday when I could have fixed the bike. I could have fixed the bike Thursday or Friday because I rolled in Athens on Thursday. So then that Saturday I'm like, let's fix the bike, but fucking everything's closed. So I was like, fuck. You know, and I couldn't even get a stuff sack for my tent, which had torn apart. I had to wait till Monday. And I should have just gone to the islands, but I was like, for some reason I was like, let's stay in Athens until Monday. So I stayed in Athens. I went back to the campsite the next day because I thought I was going to save money. But then I was like bored, even though I saw, you know, a football game or whatever. I was like, fuck this, what am I doing? So I went back into Athens and tried to go to the same hostel, but it was full. So I went to another hostel, which was way cheaper, €16. And then I partied with the locals, with the other travelers there, and that was fun. And I think I even filmed that. And I think I was there like 2 nights until Monday, and then I get up on Monday because I couldn't just leave because, you know, this new rack I had, I noticed that it wasn't strong enough to hold my bag. Like it already bent weight on this, even though I only rode like 2 miles across town. So I took the rack into a welder. I have to keep an eye on my thing because if it goes over and I have to edit it, I'm going to have to convert it with AVS and then Windows Movie Maker. But the way it is like this, I think I can upload it to YouTube, even though it's huge and it'll take forever. I think I can still upload it to YouTube as long as just in the doc format. So I got to keep an eye on the time. So so I go into this mechanic, this welder, and I'm like, yeah, I need you to weld this thing like solid. And I filmed it actually, how he welded. So he like welds it, you know, and I'm like, but it's not solid. And I'm like, all right, but weld it solid. And he's like, it's good, dude. It's like totally good. Don't worry about it. And so I was like, all right. So I went over to this other outdoor store and I bought a stuff sack for my my tent, and then I looked at the rack and I was like, no, dude, I need this thing solid. So I went back to the guy and I actually had the guy just to make sure that he knew what I was saying him. Because the guy spoke English at the camping store. I said, can you please write on your business card here, solid, all the way through, like all the synonyms for solid, you know, so it doesn't break, like big time, come on. So I handed him the card and I go, dude, solid. And he's like, it doesn't need to be solid. And I'm like, solid. Solid, 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 solid. And so and I was like, I'm gonna go get something to eat. Take your time. When I come back, please, solid. So I go out and I get something to eat, and then I come back and it's done. And I look under and he had done it solid. And then he didn't even charge me, so that was cool. He charged me the first time, but then when I had him do it solid, he didn't charge me. And so far it's been solid. So that's good. I'm very happy about that. That was my weakest link, my rack. And now it's a strong, so it's good. And then I was like, I stayed there another night at the hostel, and all these people, they were come back from the IOS, and they're like, IOS, dude. And I was like, And my mom had been saying, you know, if I am in the Greece, I should go to the Greek islands. That's like something one of the reasons people go to Greece is for the islands. So I was like, maybe I should go to the islands. And I spent a day actually riding my bike down, taking the tram and riding my bike down, you know, that peninsula that Athens on, to kind of like go to the beaches and pretend that I was on an island. But they didn't do it for me. So I go back, and the next day I was going to ride my bike out of Athens and start bike touring again, go to Delphi. So here, I'm going to pause this again.